like girl. That's like me. When I meet people, I'm like, I'm 88th in Vermont. And then from there, I think I don't really say that I'm Latina because I think it's number one, it's obvious. So I don't really have to say it. And I think my name. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I don't know how people who, when I think about it, I don't even like how people would describe me who, I don't know, I think they would use adjectives before they get to Latina because I've kind of subdued or I've kind of made it in a very covert way. Like I'm a stealth Latina.
Yeah.
My friends say, oh God, you're such a coconut. I'm like, no, honey, it's called survival.
And I think you touched on that, like that survival skill. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you did that because you understood that that's what you needed to do to be able to do your job.
Be effective and respected. Mm-hmm. And be considered and be really legitimate or perceived to be legitimate in the eyes of being an effective administrator at Trade Tech.
Did that ever impact at all your relationship with your family or with your community?
So it's impacted in a couple of ways. Number one, it impacted completely, my marriage. Their dad was born and raised in Mexico City. So he's Mexican. He's urban Mexican. He is like Mexican. And I think that's part of what attracted me. I mean, I married a Mexican who immigrated here when we got married. So I married a Mexican national. And I think to me that was, so that's how I was able to kind of retain my cultural kind of. The only thing is that the drastic differences of living in multiple worlds takes a toll because there's no, it's hard. It was really hard because I think I went to extremes. I mean, it's like an extreme thing. One thing is to marry or to hook up with somebody who's, born here, Mexican parents, and then, but one thing is to like marry somebody from, even though you're like, oh, cool, we love Frida Kahlo, Mexico City, and all that stuff. You're like, whoa, what do I have in common besides the fact that he speaks Spanish and he's cool and all that? It was just really hard. It was really hard. So that didn't work out. And but I have two beautiful girls, and they love their dad. But that was like, so I think because I was so big on escaping my Latinaness at work, I kind of went at it and started, like I got attracted to somebody who had very few similarities to me, like in a real world, besides the fact that he was from Mexico. It wasn't like, there was an age difference, there was like all kinds of things. Like you would see us and you were like, my big girl goes, I have no idea how you married my dad. I'm like, I don't either, but yeah, I'm lucky, right? I have you guys. So I think that's how I compensated.
What about like with your mom, your sister, your dad? Did that ever?
No. My sister works at Southwest. She's a program director at Southwest. And I think if anything, we're so ethnic when it comes to like, all of us. One of the things is we were always close. We're kind of an anomaly. There were only two of us, my sister and I. My parents only have two kids, and they're both girls. And so we grew up very close. Okay. And my sister has she's alwa's been with my mom. So you bring one, you bring both. So I'm very fortunate because my sister's she and I share everything in the sense of, there's a 2-year difference, but it's like nothing. Mm-hmm. And her experience is the same thing as mine. We grew up. And so we've learned, it's all about learning to know how to code switch depending on where we are. Mm-hmm. It's funny because, I think about like, I don't even know. I think the most ethnic thing my big girl does is like listen to Mon Laferte or something like that. It's just like, or she'll listen to some of the music her dad listens to. I'm hoping that it's something she'll embrace. Like I send him his mom lives in Playas de Tijuana, So we ship them out there, like, they go once a month, or they'll go 1 week during summer and 1.5 week during winter. And that's where they'll pick up their Spanish. It's almost like I've learned in my trajectory, not sounding Latina, not being super Latina, not all of that is the key to success.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm surprised for me, speaking Spanish was always considered an asset, so I never thought of like denying that.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, also when I was married, I didn't want to take Adrian to any school event. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, I didn't want them to think I was that ethnic, you know, like, yeah, come think of it. I know it sounds terrible, but I'm just thinking about it now. I didn't.
Mm-hmm. But it was, once again, because you knew you needed to.
I wanted to have a different identity at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounded like that's needed to be taken.
I think it was needed then. I don't know that it's needed now, because
okay.
I think it's changed a lot, and the biggest kind of naysayers, even though we have some, it's not, I don't want to scare you in that sense, because a lot has changed. Mm-hmm. And in the last 12, 13 years, there's been a huge, most of the negative faculty who held on to these almost racist beliefs are gone. They're retired. I just think it's like, you know, when you've been burned and this is your MO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a skill that you learned.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
It's a survival skill. And the other thing, so, you know, I got accused of being anti-Asian, which is kind of ludicrous. But people will throw out accusations just to see what sticks.
Right.
So it's almost like, I don't know how much of it is really happens to be the fact that I'm Latina, or how much of it is the fact that I am a very strong, risk-taking leader who is also Latina.
Who's awesome.
Because, number one, I don't know if I get picked on as much if I were male. And number two, if I were somewhat more, I don't want to say docile, but if I were more kind of like, you know, let's talk about it. Let's take our time with this. You know, let's not, you know, all of this. But I would have either taken longer, if it's just my leadership style. And so it's hard for me to put my finger on how much of it is that.
Okay.
Hey, baby. Tell me. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Huh? Yeah. Why? She's not cleaning up? Okay. I'll be right out. When we're done, I'll be right back. It's okay. I think we... Okay, we're going to both clean up, okay? Isabella, do I need to take your iPad away, mamita? Okay, all right. Okay, I'll be... Okay, I can see you from right here, and I can see that you're playing on your iPad. Why don't you clean up first? Okay, baby? Okay. I can see you with your iPad. Okay, why don't you help clean up? Why don't I borrow that? And then you're going to take it away. Okay, well, yes, exactly. So you're going to clean up first, right?
Thank you.
Sure.
So, looking back, what are some... It sounds like you did experience some negative experience, like there were some negative experiences, you just can't pinpoint it, if it was because of your age, because you were female, or because you were Latina.
I think the hardest ones to pinpoint would be how much of it was my age and how much was being Latina.
Okay.
And I do think though, I mean that kind of can account for up until maybe 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. I do think in the last 8 years, most of my difficulties have centered on being. It hasn't had to do with the age, because I'm not like the spring chicken or anything like that. But it has to do, since I've become a VP, it's clearly been because of my being Latina. I would say a lot of what I learned was because I couldn't attribute it to age or being Latina, and then going to trade tech. It might have been also that I was female, or at the